Good evening. Thank you for joining me for the 2021 State of the County Address. Tonight, 3 of your 4 district commissioners will be joining the program. Unfortunately, Commissioner Roy Rogers is unable to join us. During the second half of this address, we'll answer questions from community partners and members of the public. I hope you stay tuned. I look forward to when we can meet again in person, but for now, I'm simply grateful to have this time with you. Late last year, I delivered an end-of-year message that addressed the many challenges we faced: the pandemic and related economic recession, a reckoning on racial injustice, as well as the wildfires and toxic smoke. It was a year we will never forget. But through loss, grief, and pain, we found resilience and hope. We were given a unique opportunity to take an honest, even critical look at ourselves, our community, our structures. And from that, we made the intentional choice to do better. I'm reminded that sometimes it takes adversity for us to come together to tackle our toughest issues. With that in mind, I want to reflect on 2020 before looking ahead. We recorded the first confirmed COVID-19 case in Oregon in February of last year. Public health and emergency operations centers across the state had been watching and waiting. But when the time came, it was Washington County that had to take on this unknown virus first. That meant we had to create systems and programs while reassigning staff to cover essential county services. We worked quickly to provide temporary housing for those who had to isolate, while also assisting those who needed help with food, medicine, and support. The first pandemic in our lifetime was a hectic and scary time that tested us as an agency and as a community. But in that mad rush to respond, the fact that we had to go first allowed us to create some best practices. Before our first COVID case, the Commission approved the Equity Resolution that calls on us to commit to addressing systemic racism in all county endeavors, policies, and programs. We immediately put the resolution into action through our COVID response. One of these best practices was to embed an equity officer within our Emergency Operations Center. This ensured the team used an equity lens when deciding how to deploy limited resources and assistance. I applaud our EOC team and public health staff, especially Dr. Pewson Mint, who worked to ensure that Latino, Latinx, Black, Indigenous, and other people of color had access to public health information and resources. Even with these extraordinary efforts, the numbers show that too many people of color still fell through the cracks. Communities of color were hit harder by the virus. Here in Washington County, for example, our Latino, Latinx neighbors make up more than 15% of our county's population, but represented 41% of the known COVID-19 cases. The virus revealed inequities in our systems that we knew existed but had not yet addressed. It revealed a level of systemic racism that left people of color risking their health in frontline jobs or having to give up a job to homeschool and provide child care for their families. For those of us with privilege, we ordered groceries and dinners from delivery services while safely working remotely from home. In the months and years ahead, I will continue to work with my fellow commissioners to call for our programs, policies, and decisions to center equity and lead with race. Working together with our nonprofit and community-based partners, we will connect with and support those whom government have historically left behind. For those who struggle with utility bills during the pandemic, the county led an effort with our fellow utilities to provide ratepayer relief. Clean Water Services remains committed to protecting public health and restoring the environment in partnership with others to build a more inclusive and resilient community. In 2020, Clean Water Services marked its 50th anniversary at a time when our work took on new urgency. Sewage utility staff maintained operations 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, even launching powerful new initiatives specific to the pandemic, such as the People Protecting People PPE program and the nationally recognized COVID Sewer Surveillance Project in partnership with OSU, Oregon Health Authority, and OHSU. I also want to send my thanks to Washington County Sheriff's Office staff who showed up to maintain public safety despite the uncertainty of the pandemic. Specifically to jail staff, I saw your genuine commitment to caring for the adults in our custody by implementing safety measures which have to date prevented a COVID outbreak in our 572-bed facility. Thank you. I'm also proud of the work of our amazing Washington County and Clean Water Services staff who quickly adjusted to new work demands and school-at-home realities, to our public health team who worked so hard to help keep you safe, and our frontline workers who support our lives every day, often unseen. I am grateful beyond words for your service and sacrifices on our behalf. While we work to support and protect our community, I would be remiss if I didn't take a moment to acknowledge the harassment, intimidation, and recent deadly violence experienced by our Asian and Pacific Islander community members. They've been on the receiving end of racist accusations and hate-filled information from the highest levels of government. The truth is, contracting the virus has nothing to do with a person's ethnicity, language, or country of origin. We must also acknowledge that Oregon has a long history of racism against Asian Americans. During World War II, residents of Japanese descent were forced to relocate to a temporary camp in Portland before relocating to permanent internment camps in Idaho and just south of Klamath Falls in Northern California. It is important that we remember that bias against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders is not new. I look forward to the upcoming proclamation in May, where we will celebrate the lives and accomplishments of our Asian and Pacific Islander staff and community members. But let me be as clear as I can. Racist violence and hate against anyone is simply not welcome. Not now, not ever. I've spoken before about George Floyd and how his violent death and those of so many others provided an inflection point for our country. Some protests turned into riots as civil unrest grew throughout our region. Out of the justified rage and demands for fairness grew an organization whose mission is to change how we, as elected officials, think about our commitment to racial injustice. This organization, Reimagine Oregon, came together out of a collection of Black businesses, nonprofit, and community leaders who want to have an honest conversation about meaningful change. This group took a new approach, calling together elected officials, from U.S. senators to the governor, to commissioners from all 3 regional counties, plus mayors. They acknowledged the numerous reports, programs, and policies that had been compiled over the years, and then asked one simple question. What is your timeline to make good on your promised policies and investments, and who can we hold accountable to get this done? The message was crystal clear. The time for change is now. People of color have waited too long for justice and equality. I'm proud to report that Washington County has been engaging with Reimagine Oregon from the very beginning. We will continue to work with them to help track our progress and ensure that we are held to the same high standards that every public agency should strive for. We've heard clearly from our community that public safety and criminal justice reform should be reevaluated to focus on rehabilitation, healing, reducing recidivism, and doing so in an equitable and trauma-informed approach. To this end, one of the county's legislative priorities is to secure sustainable funding for community corrections. This funding would allow the county to provide oversight, assistance with life, skills, and job training that lead to better outcomes and lasting change. We have much work to do. Just beginning is not enough. We create change through action and investment, not just with words. We must and will continue to follow through on our commitment to invest in and support the work of our Chief Equity Officer and her team of experts while embracing change. 2020 brought us a shared grief and a racial reckoning on levels not seen since the 1960s. But it also gave us direction and strength to redouble our commitment to this vital work. Throughout the region, we've seen an increase in houseless individuals and camping, which was intensified as the state went into lockdown and required heightened safety protocols due to the pandemic. For these individuals, it was much harder to take these safety precautions. The increase in houselessness has outpaced our resources, but we have two glimmers of hope on the horizon. In 2018, voters approved the Metro Affordable Housing Bond Program. Washington County, along with the cities of Hillsborough and Beaverton, is expecting a total investment of $188 million, with $116 million of that identified for Washington County's Housing Services Program. These investments will create more than 1,300 affordable housing units throughout the county over the next 5 to 7 years. I'm proud to report that work is well underway, and 2 affordable apartment buildings will open by the end of this year. As we make these investments, please know that your county board is committed to an equitable, efficient, and transparent process. Nearly all of the affordable housing is being built in partnership with culturally specific organizations, as people of color are more likely to have unstable housing as their white counterparts. Explicitly focusing policies and investments to benefit communities of color will help reduce racial disparities. The second glimmer of hope was delivered last May as voters approved a once-in-a-generation commitment to supportive housing services, which is the other side of the coin of a successful affordable housing program. These dollars will help chronically homeless individuals find places to live with much-needed wraparound services, which includes rental assistance, job training, behavioral health supports, substance use disorder treatment, and many other essential programs. The funds will be available beginning this July. It says a lot about our community that in the midst of a pandemic with schools and businesses closed and the economy teetering, Washington County voters stood together with the region to say that helping our neighbors remained a priority. While there is hope and progress, the economic recovery will take many, many months. We're beginning to assess the real fallout of the past year, and as a safety net government, we will continue to dedicate our resources to help those most in need. And now, I'm pleased to hear from my colleagues, 3 of the 4 district elected commissioners.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nafisa Fai, and I am the newly elected Washington County Commissioner for District 1. District 1 includes Beaverton, Aloha, Cooper Mountain, and Reedville. I'm very honored to be here and to be your county commissioner and to have joined the Board of Washington County Commissioners. I run to address the housing affordability crisis, to address poverty, and to level the playing field for everyone. I lived in affordable housing, and I am a homeowner now, and I really want to make sure that we create robust pathways to home ownerships, to uplift people out of poverty and to help people generate wealth. I also ran to address traffic congestion and to alleviate traffic congestions for not only for our district, but for Washington County and regionally. I also run to make sure Washington County is prosperous, inclusive, and safe place for everyone. I've been your county commissioner for the past 3 or 4 months now, and I've been really busy understanding the issues that are very pressing with the time we're in, and really connecting with our constituents, and to make sure that I bring voices that are most impacted, because I really do believe that people who are closest to the problem are also closest to the solution. I want to connect with you. I want to bring your concerns forward to the board. I want to bring your solutions to the board. Please reach out to me as your county commissioner. I want to make sure I facilitate and create processes and opportunities for our constituents to drive the policies that we're voting on and the issues and the ordinance that we're putting in place for Washington County. I'm really committed to making sure that I, as your commissioner, is accessible and transparent to everyone in Washington County. I look forward to working with you and making things happen, great things happen for Washington County. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you all for taking the time to be with us for this year's State of the County. I want to take my few minutes here tonight to talk about something very important to me that I am working hard to advance in 2021, supporting child care needs in our county. You will hear a lot tonight about COVID-19 and how our county has responded to this unprecedented crisis. I plan to continue my work along with Commissioner Willie to provide support for business recovery, especially small businesses and those owned and operated by our BIPOC community. I don't want to dwell on the trauma that last year brought us and continues to bring us, but I would be remiss not to mention how this pandemic has made worse the issues that were already hurting struggling families. Since the pandemic started, women have been leaving the workforce in extraordinary numbers to tend to the educational and daycare needs of their children. This impact on working mothers is deeply concerning to me, and I am worried about the reversibility of this trend. It's not good for women, and frankly, it's not good for our economy. While the pandemic is forcing more women to pick up the child care burden, this issue is not new. Prior to the pandemic, families were still in need of more affordable child care options. That's not to say we don't do great work supporting children through WIC, our libraries, and summer programs we offer, but we need a more thorough look at how we can best support families that call Washington County home. While the pandemic was ongoing in 2020, you may know that another effort was underway to put a public option levy on the November ballot to fund child care and after-school programs. I believed in what the proposal was trying to accomplish, but it didn't have the necessary buy-in of all parties. While the proposal did not make it on the ballot, what it did do is create momentum for discussions that are ongoing at full speed here in 2021. I'm fully engaged in those conversations. I want to bring everyone into the conversation and the development of a proposal to make sure we have a successful outcome this time. Doing that means collaborating on the strategic conversations about where our dollars can make the most impact. There is no easy answer. Data shows that a great deal of impact can be made when we reach children under the age of 5, but ongoing support for school-aged kids is also important and cannot be overlooked. The goal at the end of the day is ensuring that children in our county have the support needed to become productive, successful, and happy adults. I am part of a work group now with mayors in the county and leaders from the Washington County Kids nonprofit to have these conversations. I know other community stakeholders, including school districts, are talking as well. The key is making sure we are all talking with one another and putting forward the best solution that has the best chance of success with you, the voter, to serve and support the needs of the county. In addition to finding solutions to our childcare needs, I remain involved in our community by supporting public health initiatives and the community through my work on the Public Health Advisory Council, the Community Action Board, the Central Cultural Board, and the Policy Advisory Board, which works to distribute federal dollars through the Community Development Block Grants and the Homes loans. I want to wrap up my remarks by conveying the hope that I have going forward. It's incredibly encouraging and heartwarming to see so many smart and dedicated people committed to our community and especially to our children. It's inspiring and gives me great confidence that we will make Washington County a stronger and more supportive place for our families and for our children to grow and thrive. Thank you again for being with us tonight. Please know that my door is always open.
Good evening. It goes without saying, 2020 was a tough year, especially on our small business sector. Tonight, I'm going to share how the county provided some of the CARES money to the businesses of Washington County in our effort to help them survive until we can get through this pandemic. Hopefully, you can walk away from this State of the County feeling some reassurance about 2021, knowing how your county has adapted and responded since the pandemic hit last March. Chair Harrington has already provided you with an overview of the county's response to COVID-19, but what I want to do in my few minutes here is highlight how the county came together in short fashion to support and provide assistance to our small business community. The board did not waste any time. We immediately convened an economic recovery work group made up of staff from different departments, dedicated individuals who stepped in to help while still juggling their normal responsibilities. In addition, we started a Washington County Economic Development Roundtable comprised of economic development officials from the cities throughout the county to further provide guidance for our work. In March, we successfully funded a $1 million grant program and 2 loan programs for small businesses impacted by COVID. Intel stepped up to support with another $100,000. Subsequently, the county received its direct allocation from the Federal CARES Act. Out of that allocation, we dedicated $15 million to support struggling businesses. Our work group worked hard to ensure the delivery of those funds to where they were most needed and with attention to supporting racially diverse small business owners. In collaboration with cities, chambers, and community-based organizations, we also funded the following: $10 million in a small business grant program, which we allocated $7 million to the cities of Washington County, and $3 million for our businesses located in our unincorporated areas. $2.5 million to reimburse cities that had already rolled out grant programs prior to the CARES Act, and $1.5 million towards workforce initiatives, including our partners at PCC, Work Systems, Inc., and Prosperidad. We used $500,000 to set up 4 business recovery centers, or BRCs, in Hillsborough, Beaverton, Tualatin, and Forest Grove. These are one-stop shops for small businesses to access PPE and other capital needed, all free of charge. In November, more funding arrived when the state awarded us $5.8 million in coronavirus relief fund dollars to support the following: 400-plus companies in the county that were behind on their utility bills with assistance from PGE and Northwest Natural. Grants in the range of $10,000 to bowling alleys and skating rinks. Continuing to reimburse cities for providing grants to businesses impacted by COVID. And funding through June 2021 for our BRCs, along with our funding partners. Looking ahead into 2021, we know this isn't over, and businesses continue to struggle. But I know the county will again act quickly and purposefully to distribute funding to those in need. And we're getting more funding through the American Rescue Plan Act. Wrapping up, I want to let you know that county staff has some success stories from COVID to inspire us all. We're compiling those into short videos called Lift Us Up, Keep Us Going. More details on that at the end of the program. Thank you for spending the time with us tonight, and please contact me if you have any questions.
Thank you, Commissioners, for joining me tonight and sharing some of your priorities. I look forward to seeing you during our live question and answer segment. In the coming years, we will see unprecedented investments in construction throughout our region. Earlier, I mentioned the amazing work happening to build affordable housing throughout the county. The 2018 Affordable Housing Bond sets bold requirements that public dollars in construction contracts must be prioritized for minorities, women, veteran-owned contractors, as well as disadvantaged and emerging small businesses. Add to that President Biden's $2 trillion infrastructure plan, which proposes the largest jobs and infrastructure investments since World War II. The plan will support all levels of government, delivering projects with high road standards. We need strategic investments to build a pipeline to ensure we have the skilled tradesmen and women ready to join the workforce. We must look at these investments as opportunities to grow our middle class, especially for those historically left behind. We know that 90% of minority construction contractors come out of the construction trades, and we must create pathways for diverse workers on all public construction sites. This kind of investment means that these communities will be able to build generational wealth, something that should be a goal whenever we use public dollars on major capital projects. This is the reason I am so excited about Metro's Construction Career Pathways Program, or C2P2. The name says it all, creating pathways to expand construction job opportunities for those underrepresented in the industry. C2P2 is a regional coalition of public agencies, private industry, unions, and community-based organizations working together to provide a framework and toolkit to create and sustain a diverse construction workforce. I'm advocating that Washington County sign on to the C2P2 partnership and join Clackamas County, the City of Beaverton, the Beaverton School District, and 13 other public agencies in this important regional effort to increase long-term career opportunities. I'm working closely with our county administrator and our chief equity officer to bring this policy commitment forward to the full Board of Commissioners for consideration in the coming months. Look around and see our community is growing and changing, and our county strategic plan should reflect these changes to help our community succeed. We've had the great fortune of hiring Tanya Angie as our county administrator. In just 9 months on the job, she's brought new energy and determination that has already made a positive impact. With her strategic planning experience, we look forward to launching a multi-year strategic planning process. It will include robust community engagement to ensure our values and mission align with your needs and priorities. There's a consistent theme you hear from me, centering community needs. This is no small undertaking. As the safety net government, we will provide services like mental health and addiction treatment, public health, community corrections, and juvenile justice support. As such, we must build a community needs-centered agency. Part of this endeavor will focus on improving how we engage with you, get your feedback, while delivering better customer service. It includes hosting at least 4 town halls with you and your county commission, with our first one held just last month. Another major issue to tackle is around transportation needs. This is about more than just congestion management. Our transportation system needs to take into account the first and last mile. How do individuals navigate access to and from the public transit system? It's about safe roads, safe crossing, and trails for all, whether it's a commuter cyclist to kids just learning to ride their bikes, to people walking and those using a wheelchair. We need a transportation system that works for everyone in Washington County. The failure of the 2020 Regional Transportation Funding Measure left us knowing the specifics about our transportation needs, but without any funding. We're in a tough spot, but I know that we're an innovative and engaging community. We will come together to figure this one out. The need is clear, though a source of funding is not. Before we hear from you and answer your questions, I want to remind you all that May primary ballots will be delivered over the next several days. It's an opportunity to let your voice be heard on local elections. Finally, in the months and years ahead, your county commission will continue to focus on recovering from the pandemic and economic downturn while addressing racial injustice. As more individuals get vaccinated, we can make progress towards fully reopening so families can come together and grandparents able to hug their children and grandchildren. But we must remain vigilant and safe and follow public health guidance. That means mask up and socially distance. We must continue to do our part to stop the virus from spreading. I believe we will come out of this stronger, more inclusive, and fully committed to racial equality in all we do. We've taken the crucial first step of acknowledging that there are cracks in our systems. It's time for action and investment. We're living through so many challenges, but together we will emerge a better community. Thank you for making Washington County such a special place. Thank you for being my community. And now, we'll take just a moment to transition to our question and answer portion of this evening. Well, welcome everyone, and I hope you've been enjoying all of the material thus far for tonight's State of the County. In preparation for this evening, we asked members of the public to submit written questions, and board members will take turns answering these questions, as well as answering a few live questions from some of our community organizations. So first, Commissioner Fye, why don't you kick us off?
Certainly, Chair. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I have a question here regarding public health. And it says, one of the issues we face in the community is houseless individuals that often have mental health issues. What kind of investments are being made to address that this will help improve the lives? Sorry, I think I messed it up. What kind of investments are being made to address this that would help improve the lives of those individuals and ultimately improve the safety of our community? And I'll take I'll take a peek at answering this question, and then I think anybody can chime in. But for me, for the last 4 months, I don't think I'll do justice in answering, since I haven't had comprehensive briefings of all the great things that Washington County is doing to mitigate the mental health impacts for our residents and our neighbors who are impacted by mental health issues. I will say one of the investments that I feel comfortable talking about tonight is actually an investment that the voters in the Tri-County region have made, and that is investing to address chronic homelessness, which is the overwhelmingly passing the supporting housing services measure in the 2020, which really focused on addressing how do we design a better system of care for folks who are experiencing homelessness and houselessness. And one of the key area that's in the Washington County implementation plan includes behavioral health and recovery supportive services. And I'm really excited for that implementation plan, especially our implementation plan for Washington County and the impacts it will have for our folks and our residents, because it really does lead with racial justice, and it does lead with race, and it centers on equity and fairness. And I really hope that if the plan is operationalized as it is, it'll definitely have an impact, and it will certainly facilitate a healthy community and a safe community for everyone in Washington County. And I think now I will ask staff to bring forward Juliana from the Coalition of Communities of Color, who will be asking a question to Commissioner Treese. Juliana or Elizabeth?
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. So my question for the commissioner is, as we all know, there are many houseless people in our community that may not be as obvious. They are sleeping on people's couches and on their floors, and maybe with some family members, but they're still homeless, but you just don't see them because they're not on the street. So my question is, will the county housing plan include a permanent housing and job service opportunities for single people of color who might not have employment, or those employed in low-wage jobs?
Thank you, Juliana, for that question. And before I answer your question, I just want to give a shout out to the Coalition of Communities of Color for all the work that you have done with the county from the very beginning, starting with the Leading with Race study that was done that provided us a great foundation for working on our equity resolution, to mediating conversations that we've had with our community, and to provide guidance along the way. So just a shout out to you, and a special thank you to you and to the staff there. When it comes to the houselessness situation, I would confirm what Commissioner Fye said, that yes, we will be focusing on all aspects of houselessness and all people in those structures. You mentioned the fact that there's people that are not apparent in the system. They may be couch surfing. We see that through our school districts for certain. Beaverton School District has one of the highest rates of homeless kids and families, but they aren't apparent necessarily. They're not necessarily sleeping on the streets or in cars, but they're staying with aunts and uncles or grandparents, or they're sleeping in garages. And you're absolutely right. We have to address, and we have to make sure that our plan for the supporting housing services reflects that those individuals and individuals of lower income, people of color, all parts of that spectrum. Did that answer your question?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, Juliana, again, thank you for your question. Thank you for participating tonight. And again, thank you to your organization for the help and guidance that you've provided us. So the next group, I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Willie, who has a question from a member of the public.
And you have to turn it off mute. Thank you, Commissioner Treese. Yes, I do have a question from the member of the public that I will read and then respond to. I know you've been involved in the economic relief work related to COVID. It will take months and months to recover from the COVID relief impacts. Some small businesses just couldn't survive or are still struggling. Will there be more dollars available to help us dig out of the financial burdens? And the best news I can give you is yes. In March, the federal government signed the American Rescue Plan, which is going to allocate a significant amount of money directly to the counties and to the cities. Our portion at this point in time is estimated to be about 116 million. And in comparison, remember, we received about $104 million in the first go round of CARES money. The good news is this is more money. We have a longer period of time to allocate this money and to make sure it gets in the right places. Our focus on small minority-owned businesses is still going to be the same as it was in the first go around. We worked a lot with the cities of Washington County and partnered with them to make sure that we reached every corner of the county to make sure this money got to the places it needed. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough money to make sure that every business got it. So we're going to try and probably refocus, gather together our business group again, and invite some of our private partners. And we're going to have more conversation. The first tranche of money is not expected to arrive until about July. So we've got a couple of months to plan how we're going to do that. But rest assured, we're going to be focusing on our small businesses, and we're going to do our very best to get that money out into the hands of our businesses and to try and get our economy back going again in Washington County. And with that, let's see, we're going to continue with the round robin, and I invite Chair Harrington to answer the next questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Willie. And I'd like to next thank Max McCosey from SAGE. We're sorry, Max, that you weren't able to join us tonight, but we appreciate your sending in the following question. Do you think Washington County offers a safe place for elder, BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, or people of color, LGBTQ plus folks to gather? If so, what are they? And please define safe. If not, are there plans being made for this population, and can that be shared? Well, I want to start with, I know that there is a gap in services for elders in our LGBTQ plus community here in Washington County. But thanks to an area study that we just recently completed, we have a much better picture of the needs and where we can do better. For example, almost 6% of the respondents to this community survey done by our Disability Aging Veteran Services Department identified as LGBTQ. So Max, I want to thank you along with SAGE and Friendly House for your role in making that possible through the interviews and outreach that you conducted on our behalf. Staff wouldn't have been able to have the robust interviews and conversations with the community had it not been for your work, especially during this last year of challenge. The needs assessment has noted barriers such as stigma, fear of discrimination, lack of cultural competency from all types of services, a need for a place to convene and gather, and frankly, a lack of health literacy, particularly amongst our trans elders. So with this finding, we at the county are planning to increase the availability of culturally specific congregate meals that are available through community partners, including LGBTQ serving organizations. The DAVS department will also be funding for the first time a small recreation program to bring groups of older adults together for social and cultural gatherings that will help create that sense of safety, belonging, socialization, and fun that you were alluding to in your question. We also have Project Visibility, which is aimed to raise awareness of LGBTQ needs among the workforce of aging network providers, including adult foster home providers, assisted living facility providers, aging services case managers, senior and community center staff. It's great that we finally have this baseline of information for us to build on so that we can increase access to LGBTQ focused family care support, caregiver respite, caregiver support groups, and group counseling. We're also going to be working with the Oregon Law Center to improve outreach and access to LGBTQ older adults. Everyone in our community counts, and we need to get better. I also earlier mentioned the Affordable Housing Bond, and with the program, the Saltzman Road Senior Apartments has been approved, which will bring 53 new homes for LGBTQ plus seniors right here in our community. And with the supporting housing services measure, that's another opportunity for organizations like SAGE to do that culturally relevant work to support our aging LGBTQ community members. We know that vulnerable populations need more than just affordable housing. They also need supports in place to help them be successful in housing placement and a stable, thriving life. And that supportive housing bond will provide the funding exactly for these services. So thank you, Max. I really appreciate your question. And now we're going to shift to another line of questions in the queue. So we'll turn it back over to Commissioner Fye for the next question.
Thank you, Chair. The next question is directly to me, and I'll ask and answer. It says, as the newest member of the Board of Commissioners, and so with the freshest eye, what do you see the greatest challenge facing Washington County today? And I'll be quick. I got a text that we have to move along and be short. And I will say that I don't think I'll do justice or be fair with 4 months in as a commissioner to really pinpoint and say this is exactly what the greatest challenge is for facing Washington County today. But I will say what I fear about, and I do fear that Washington County not holistically embracing equity. So that's my fear, and I think, but I do see a lot of hope in the way of our work and our staff and the plans that we put forward, embracing racial justice and really and putting out those hard words out there, centering people who are disadvantaged by our system, not because of any individual reason, but systemically, and really reckoning with that. And I do fear that we might come short in our reckoning and not holistically embrace equity, but I am hopeful and that we will really take care of everyone in Washington County and lead with justice and fairness in our work and our practices and our policies.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Fye. Boy, 1 hour sure does go by quickly. I want to thank you all again for joining us tonight. And I please hope that you will join us at our upcoming town halls. We have one coming up on Monday, June 28th from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And these are great forums for you to bring your questions live to talk with commissioners. Then we have Saturday, September 18th from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. And then lastly, for rounding out the rest of 2021, Thursday, December 2nd from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. So thank you again for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed this evening's program. Thanks for making the 2021 State of Washington County a great event. Thank you.